We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 17 of the JEB Board podcast. This week, we have Nick Noah back off of his flu suspension. Also with us is the Jimmy Graham supporter, Caleb Naylor, and then Kyle's back on here with us. Kyle, I felt like we just talked about this, but how did you like that Green Bay game?
Yeah, Grayson, it's pretty hard to make us people of Wisconsin hate somebody, but Joe Barry did it. I mean, that's like making a bunch of Canadians pissed off, and that's almost impossible. So there you go.
You took the words right out of BB's mouth.
Yeah, I was about to say, you practically admitted that you are in fact Canadian, and BB's not here to hear it. So, damn.
If there was a Canadian Civil War, I feel like the North would be Canada, and then the South would be North Dakota, Montana, Washington, Wisconsin, and
We're
Michigan.
seceding from Canada. You're not in Canada. We're seceding from Canada.
You don't have a choice.
Is that why you don't know football, Kyle? Because you're Canadian?
Oh,
Yeah. We have the CFL. Our goalposts are 10
you see
yards
the
in
way
front.
they do those the freaking punts in that league are this gives me a headache trying to
So
figure
this
that
is
out.
also Kyle admitting that he watches the CFL.
Okay, it's fun. I don't care.
And because you're Canadian.
I bet watching the CFL is like watching the Pac-12. Honestly, like it's
Wow.
really just hard to watch, and you have to watch it at weird times. I bet they play like at Tuesdays at 9 a.m. I bet that's when their games are. It's like, oh, we can't.
I only watch the highlights on Twitter.
So,
Yeah,
Kyle,
we can't. They can't play it like times they get in the way of BBC or whatever weird Canadian shows.
CBC. So, Kyle, here's my question: do you have a CFL team?
No, I only watch the highlights. I really do. Like the punting in that game, like I said, is weird. Where they can, the punt goes 5 yards, you can recover your own punt, and it gets you a first down.
Okay, let's move on from Canadian football. I'm already.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, moving into our highlights, one of the highlights we have this week is just unexpected QB play around the league. I know a big one in my head that I can remember right off the top of my head was Jared Goff. Jared Goff scoring. He scored 31 points in fantasy, but he had like 200 and something yards and 5 touchdowns. So, and then of course, Nick, I think you mentioned
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning, yeah.
Yeah, a little legacy game for him because, nobody really expected Jake Browning to come out and throw for almost 350 and a couple touchdowns. And Jamar Chase was hurt. So it wasn't even like, Jamar Chase was doing all that because Jamar Chase only scored about 10 points in fantasy, but Jake Browning was still able to put up 300 because T. Higgins scored 2 touchdowns. So I'm glad that BB sat him in fantasy.
Yeah. Another one is that we're not thinking about is 48 yards and 4 touchdowns. Obviously, but that was only half of the touchdowns that that the Raiders scored. Brock Purdy had a pretty decent game, 242 and 4 touchdowns. Just all kinds of Gardner Minshew had 215 with 3.
Yep.
And then
it's a very good Steelers defense.
Yeah, and then the creme de la creme, the icing on the cake, Baker Mayfield with 381 yards and 4 touchdowns with the first ever perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. And man, like I said, that is just a cherry on top. It's beautiful. It's almost like I picked them to win last week because I knew Baker Mayfield was just going to do dirty things. to the Packers defense.
Who the hell plays soft coverage on a never mind. Nothing.
So,
I ain't
Well,
gonna
you,
say nothing.
you don't have to save it now. Here's the content.
I was
Here's where you
about to
say it.
say,
Yeah, say it now.
Okay, it's a 3rd and 24. They're at the 50. And you're trying to keep them out of field goal range? Yeah, let's play soft coverage.
Yeah.
What a fucking genius.
Yeah, that would be the same. I figured that would be the same team that is now 1-2 against the NFC South. So rough start for whatever team that is. Second highlight that we have is James Cook. James Cook actually had, I mean, for his standards against Dallas, the number 1 defense in the league, the guy had 179 yards just rushing with a touchdown. And then he also added 42 yards off of 2 catches and a touchdown. Had a monster game against Dallas.
James Cook is said it throughout the entire series of JEB board, quietly one of the premier backs of this league. When Josh Allen is throwing interception, Josh Allen did not have a great game.
89 yards.
Exactly. But James Cook, I mean, this has been all season now, not to this caliber of a 200-yard performance, but James Cook is, I think, like 30 yards away from 1,000-yard rusher.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, James Cook is looking very, very good.
At what point? I mean, because he has to be the, like you said, the premier back, the number 1 back in Buffalo at this point in time. At what point in time do they maybe reevaluate their offense and go more run heavy with a guy like that? Because the one thing I do want to admit before we talk about this a little bit, he had the most carries this week by 8 through the whole year. He had 17 against Vegas. He had 17 against the Jets, and then he had 25 against Dallas. So at what point do they say, okay, well, when we give the ball to the guy, he can make things happen. Why don't we start doing it more?
Nah, let Josh Allen throw 6 more interceptions, then they can start talking about it. But
Yeah.
I don't
think
think
it
they'll
depends
go
on the-
full rushing. I think they'll be more balanced.
No, for sure. I'm saying more along the lines of, like, instead of him getting, pull it back up real quick, instead of him getting,
I mean, they should probably go 50-50 for an air raid.
well, looking at it, I mean, he had 10 carries for 58 yards, 5.8 yards a carry against Kansas City on the ground, and then added another 83 yards receiving. He had 16 for 43 against Philadelphia, 17 for 73 against the second game against the Jets, 12 for 109. So at what point do you say, again, this guy can average a decent amount of yards per carry, and the offensive line seems competent. So why not run the ball a little bit more? Give him those 25 carries. Let Josh Allen take down the amount of throws that he's throwing a game. That would break down his interceptions and make him look more competent as well.
He's
Yeah.
playing
Well-
like prime Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Well, I think when the season gets longer, you get these cold games coming in, you'll see him running a lot more, especially with Buffalo and that lake effect snow. You never know. One day it could be 60 degrees. Next day you're getting 7 feet of snow. So,
Well, and that goes into our third highlight, which I enjoyed very much so. So UFC 296 was this past weekend, and the best fight on the card was not even in the ring. Sean Strickland and Dricus Duplessis, South African contender for the middleweight championship, they had some words at the press conference for their upcoming fight at UFC 297. And some things were said that we can't say on here, or else we would not be able to do another podcast.
Sure, we can. They're quotes.
Yeah. So to sum it up, Dricus Duplessis basically said that Sean Strickland was touched by his dad, And then Sean Strickland called him a slur for a homosexual person. So that
Does it
trend,
like once every
yeah,
like press conference.
yeah, I was about to say it's pretty common. But then it got worse because somehow they managed to sit these guys 10 to 15 feet away from each other, showed him on the broadcast, showed Drinkus first, then showed Sean that was literally sitting 10 feet in front of him, right? And he turned around, Sean Strickland turned around, did the gun to him, and then Drinkus kept talking. Well, they kept the camera on the guy. Sean Strickland told another fighter, Gilbert Burns, told his son to move nicely. He's like, hey, bud, I need you to move out of the way. As soon as Gilbert's son moved out of the way, he like eagle clawed him, like jumped on top of him and started raining down fists and elbows on top of Duplessis. And then they had to be separated. What's his name? Dana White came over, separated, told Sean to go to the back. As soon as it happened, Sean Strickland just turned it off. He was fine. He was good to go. He was like, haha, yeah. He's like, talk shit, get hit is literally what he said, and then just walked to the back and ended up leaving.
My God.
Dana sat them together and he came out and he was like, what stupid person would sit them that far? Oh yeah, this stupid asshole. Me. I did it.
Yeah, because he said that he does the seating arrangements for every single fight. And he was like, yeah, what kind of idiot puts those two guys that close? This one. So, well, now we'll go into our lowlights too. Just the results of UFC 296. The card honestly wasn't that great. There was potential for the fights to be good, but when you look at them, I mean, number one, Tony Ferguson lost. Nobody wanted to see that. Nobody wanted to see Tony Ferguson lose to Paddy Pimblett, but he did. It was also like it was kind of dominant, but it was boring. I mean, am I wrong, Nick? It was like
it was basically Tony taking shots the
yeah,
entire time. Like he'd take 3-4 shots, and then there'd be about 45 seconds to a minute of kind of just sparring, and then Tony would take another 3-4 shots. I mean, he only landed a couple like on Paddy, and it was just very lackluster. It just we talked about it, and we've talked about it before that Tony just seems one step behind, but in this fight he just continued to look to counter, and in doing that he was 2 or 3 steps behind and would just get caught every single time Paddy would throw something. I mean, Paddy he set a record for his most significant strikes in a fight, and I mean Tony ate them all.
Yeah,
but
he didn't get knocked out.
I mean, 7 in a row, Tony.
Yeah, and with David Goggins in your corner too.
Yeah.
So now we'll say the fight, this fight was kind of one-sided. The Shavkat and Rachmanov and Wonder Boy fight, that was kind of one-sided. The co-main of the flyweights was actually not that bad, but then you got to the co-main of Colby Covington and Leon Edwards, and everybody expects Colby Covington to. I mean, he's a collegiate All-American wrestler at Iowa, 31-0 in wrestling in college. You expect him to wrestle. He didn't try to take him down until like round 3.
Yeah.
And the thing was, Leon took him down to, I guess, prove a point, but the fight itself was just boring. It's like, I appreciate wrestling in a sense. Like, I can get behind, like, oh, he's taking him down. He's actually working. He's like peppering him with punches on the ground, but there was nothing going on. It was just like wrapped him up, took him down, laid on him, stand up. That was it from realistically both sides. Like, Covington had more action at the end of the fight in the 4th and 5th rounds, but the first 3, it was just like Leon dominated, but it was like a boring domination, So I don't know. I wouldn't really. I was not. I'm glad I didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
So, second low light here is the game that just came on before we or just finished before we started recording. Old Dominion blowing a 28-0 lead against Western Kentucky. I know, Kyle, you caught a decent bit of that game. What were your thoughts on that since you watched the entire game or most of it?
Sickos. Western Kentucky threw 4 interceptions.
They did.
And then fumbled with 6 minutes left, down by 7. Fumbled the ball. ODU got it back. And, I mean, that game should have been it. Then they had a field goal blocked. Went into overtime. Had another field goal blocked. And then lost. I mean, just terrible.
Sounds like they got hill-topped.
Yeah, but, you know, it's one of those amazing, terrible games that you just love that you got to watch. Because it was so terrible that it was great.
And then our final low light is a combination of 2 NFL teams that we've I kind of alluded to one of them, but I'll let Nick take away the first one. Nick, if you would like to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers.
So, as much as I can joke on any other team, I can do it because I'm a Chargers fan. Justin Herbert's out for the rest of the season. There is some light at the end of the tunnel because we just fired Brandon Staley. But Austin Eckler is one of the biggest disappointments this year. Keenan Allen can't continue to do it all on his own because he's getting hurt. Quentin Johnson is a bust. Our first round, draft pick, the wide receiver out of TCU, looked amazing in college and then comes in and can't complete a pass or catch a pass. Our best receiver right now besides Keenan Allen is Gerald Everett. Go Jags.
Go Jags.
South in your mouth.
But Easton Stick is ass.
That poor kid.
No run game whatsoever. And even when Austin Eckler would only rush for 50 yards, he would still have that one big run, or he would, score a couple times plus the receiving. He's not doing. He's not scoring. He ran for a first down with Raiders already scoring 63 points and signals for the first down. Congrats, bud. The Chargers are abysmal. And now it's more than likely going to happen that Bill Belichick's going to come in and be the next coach at the Chargers. Me. That sucks. That really sucks.
And them firing Brandon Staley is such a honestly, he was already on a hot seat for most of the year at this point, and that was the nail in the coffin on his career as a Charger. However, there's only one way you're going to make any money at all on fan attendance in that stadium. People are not going to go to watch Chargers games so long as Brandon Staley is the head coach. So it's good that they fired him just so that they could at least try to salvage a little bit of goodwill with the fans. But yeah, it doesn't bode well with Bill Belichick. I mean, Grayson said a lot of it last week is, Bill Belichick is just not growing with the times. He is an old school coach, and I don't know if that's going to jive well with the Chargers. You can't go into Los Angeles and try to say, oh, well, we're going to install the Charger way, the Patriot way.
Justin Herbert's such a good quarterback, and the Chargers are just squandering it.
Justin Herbert made Brandon Staley look like a competent coach.
Yeah.
And I mean, they just compounded on it too with firing their GM too. It seems like I did not expect the Chargers to be in the same conversation as what we talked about last week about teams in the worst spot.
Yes.
If we would have waited a week, the Chargers may very well have been in that conversation. But again, going back to that, they're a couple steps ahead of these other organizations because they at least fired their coach and fired their GM, and they've gone.
Meanwhile, Arthur Smith.
Speaking of which, going to the Falcons. I know. Caleb, you've been keeping up with the Falcons a decent bit, like I have. So, do you have any comments on the Falcons, especially them losing to the record-based worst team in the league this past week, 9-7?
Those damn dirty birds, man. Like,
That's something else.
I swear, dude. Like, I'm so glad. I thank God every day I'm not a Falcons fan. I wake
Apparently,
up happy.
BB's not either.
Yeah, BB is tuned out. I think BB would rather have some sort of foodborne illness than have to sit through a full 4 quarters of a Falcons game, especially with Arthur Smith as the head coach. So
I'm convinced BB doesn't watch football.
I
concur.
This isn't really me pulling from any particular sources or anything, but it's more so just looking at the Smith family at large. I mean, very, very wealthy family, founders of FedEx. It's going to be, it's a pretty affluent family, kind of like the Ford family owning the Lions. But with Arthur Smith being the head coach of the team and his dad being the owner, there's a lot of optics that go with firing your son as your head coach. I don't think we're going to ultimately see a firing. I think we're going to see a
parting of ways.
Either a parting of ways, or they'll find some way to incorporate him into the front office. I'm wondering if maybe we don't see Arthur Smith get installed in the front office, maybe even as GM, because I think it would be very embarrassing for the team and very embarrassing for the Smith family beyond the team for Arthur Smith to be fired by his dad.
He's going to be the assistant to the vice president, like Dwight Schrute off The Office. He's not going to be the assistant to the general manager or regional manager, or he's not the assistant regional manager. He's going to be the assistant to the regional manager. Yeah, that's going to be Arthur Smith.
Coffee for people.
So but you got to think though, because this is in all likelihood Arthur Smith is going to be the future owner of the team. And how in God's name do you be taken seriously if you were fired yourself as head coach? Like, Al Davis for the Raiders, he was the owner, general manager, and head coach all at once at one point in time. So he's fired himself before. But, when you're the owner, you can kind of do that. But when you're the owner's son, it's not a good look.
Well, I think he's given a worse look by the way he's coaching than just getting fired. I feel like at this point, being fired would help his cause.
No, I agree.
One day.
No, I agree. He's got to go. He's got to be fired. But I'm thinking that we're not going to see quick movement on it because there's too much optics at play.
I mean, Arthur Smith is basically like Kyle if Kyle was a coach.
Honestly, especially without the mustache, like it really is Kyle.
False. I would know when to fire a defensive coordinator. Anyways, did y'all see the price of them tickets for that game? 49 cents.
45 cents.
49 cents.
Dang.
Oh, all right. Well, that's going to get us our uncivil debate. And we got a fun one this week. It's not really based off of anything that we've seen in the NFL or college football this year. We're going to go something into a little bit more, I guess, sitting around talking about. We are going to debate our best college football quarterbacks of the 2000s. So there's a lot of people to pick from here. I mean, we were talking about it right before we got on. We don't have BB's. BB, we didn't do a content meeting yesterday, so BB sent in nothing. But we'll start with let's start with Kyle on this one because I feel like his is like a more resounding one, like when you think of 2000s quarterbacks.
Yeah, I got the man Tim Tebow. God sent him down to play football. Yeah, so Tim Tebow is second
Tim.
in the
Old
but
Tim Tim.
he's second in history of the NCAA with 170.8 career passing efficiency rating. Second of all time. 9,285 yards through the air. And then you have another 2,947 rushing yards. But the thing about his rushing is when he would run, he'd hit. He wasn't a QB that was known to like slide or get out of bounds. He would lower his shoulder and hit you to the ground. And we a lot of times we talk about stats and everything, but that's the kind of quarterback where if you're down by 10 in the fourth quarter, you want him because he's driven to win. He wants to win, and he'll put his team on his back to win. Let it be if he's got a serial killer on his team or anything like that. But Tim Tebow is easily the most competitive quarterback out of anybody I think that's ever played the game, and that's just on the wheel to win. And going back to his stats itself, he was putting up rushing numbers that are equivalent to great running backs. So, he's the man, dude. He's the man.
It's Tim
He's the
Tim.
first. Yeah, it's Tim Tim.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Caleb next. Caleb
All
had
right.
also had an interesting one.
So I'm picking Vince Young. Oh, you watched the guy play? The guy was physically imposing on the field.
Okay.
He beat the Trojans when the Trojans were like on the cusp of a significant dynasty, Pete Carroll years. I mean, Reggie Bush, they played against Reggie Bush, and Vince Young was the key to success in that national championship game between the Trojans and the Longhorns. So in 2005, honestly, it's insane that it's a testament to how good Reggie Bush is that he managed to beat Vince Young out when it came to the Heisman. But
Well,
you look at Vince Young. Vince Young single-handedly was responsible for 38 touchdowns that year, and in addition to that, was averaging like 8 yards a play. Insane. So Vince Young was he was a god amongst football players in his time at the University of Texas, and I don't think you can tell the story of college football since 2000 without mentioning Vince Young's name. So I'm picking Vince Young as my best quarterback of that time period, and I'd be interested to hear everybody else's.
Cam Newton. The thing about him that made him so special was it was obviously just the one season, but arguably one of the best. Maybe not statistically. I mean, he still had 4,300 total yards and 51 touchdowns. He was like one of the only other quarterbacks to do a 20-20 season like Tebow did, but he had 30-20, 30 passing touchdowns and 20 rushing touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, almost 1,500 yards on the ground is crazy for a quarterback. And the thing that made Cam so special and what makes his season, in my opinion, the most memorable was that he was playing with like JUCO level players around him.
Yeah,
Only
And a
two
JUCO
other
level head
players.
coach.
Yeah. Gene
Too.
Chizik. He won Gene Chizik a national championship undefeated. I mean, two other players ever stepped foot on a field. Only one other one ever actually logged a snap, and that was Saints legend Nick Fairley.
Yep.
Who had he had a heart condition and had to quit. It was just karma for all the aneurysms he gave quarterbacks after the 5-second late hits. And then Lee Zimba, who was I think he was like left tackle, but again, he never registered a snap. But But yeah, I mean, Cam basically did it all on his own at Auburn, and it was just like, again, taking the stats out of it. When you saw him play, it seemed like there was Cam and then there was everybody else, even on like the defense. I mean, it was very clear cut. He was a better athlete and a better player than everybody else on the field. And so, I mean, Cam, he was unstoppable. So Cam, and obviously again, the stats, I mean, 4,300 yards total is not a bad stat, but I know Grayson, yours is statistically the best, or well was before this year.
Yeah. So my guy, I went with you may call him a one-hit wonder, but I went with Joe Burrow. So obviously he didn't do much at Ohio State, right? He logged a total of he went 22 for 28 in 5 games at Ohio State for 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So nothing really going there. Well, scratch that. I'm sorry. 2 years at Ohio State, he went 29 for 39 with 2 touchdowns, 287 yards. Then he went to LSU as a junior. He had a 57.8 completion percentage. Almost hit 3,000 yards. He had 2894, 16 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So when you look at those 3 statistics, you're like, okay, like this guy, like he's just going to be a run-of-the-mill quarterback that goes through college and becomes a insurance agent like after he gets done, right? But then senior year hits 2019 at Louisiana State University. 402 completions off of 527 attempts. That is a 76.3 percentile completion percentage. 5,671 yards. That is a 10.8 yards per attempt. On top of that, he had 60 touchdowns that year with 6 interceptions. And, you know, everybody always talks about the Heisman moment for Joe Burrow is like not him making any plays. It's his Heisman moment is when he got like late hit by that guy from UCF on the interception and like basically almost registered him unconscious. And then it snapped just like that. I think they were down behind UCF that game and they ended up coming back.
Yeah, that was their bowl game at the end of his junior year.
Exactly. They were down behind that game, and that was when it clicked for him. So, Kyle, you said something about Tim Tebow. What was his passer rating or his QBR?
170.8.
So, Joe Burrow's rating was 172.4 overall. So, statistically, and obviously I'm a big statistics guy, right? Like, he had I don't really think it's arguable. He probably had the best season so far that we've seen in college football, like as a quarterback. Like being able to throw over 5,500 yards with 60 touchdowns, insane. And like he had a great team with him, don't get me wrong. But to be able to do what he did in 15 games is just insane. I'm trying to let me do the math right here. So 5,671 yards. Okay. 71 divided by 15, 378 yards a game. So, and, you know, we've seen that translate into the NFL a little bit when his issue right now is he can't really stay healthy. So, but just in terms of just overall QB play, like he's numbers don't lie. So, but we'll do this right quick, and we'll move on into we'll go to our college football segment next to keep with the topic. But after what y'all have heard today, right quick, who do y'all think was the best quarterback from college in the 2000s?
I gotta concur with Nick and say Cam Newton. I do. Because when you look at all of the guys that we've named, with the exception of Joe Burrow, Cam Newton is the only one there that didn't have a household name as a head coach. And, you know, like we talked about when Nick was there, he pretty much, you know, gave Gene Chizik an undefeated season with a national championship. Nick already preached about how they didn't have very much talent on that team. And he was able to carry them to a national championship game against Oregon when Oregon was on fire. Like they were the biggest juggernaut in college football of that time frame. So I'm thinking Cam Newton, because even Vince Young, who I had argued, he had Mac Brown, and Mac Brown's going to go down in history as one of the best head coaches to ever coach at the University of Texas. So I got to go with Cam Newton. Joe Burrow had Ed Orgeron, who's comparable to Gene Chizik, albeit better than Gene Chizik. But Joe Burrow also had crazy good receivers, like absolutely amazing receivers at LSU. Cam Newton never had that at Auburn. So if I'm picking my best one, I got to pick Cam Newton because he made the biggest impact and had the least to work with.
I concur.
I'm also going with Nick too. I just like with Cam, with the fact that he was playing with junior high ball players the entire time he was at Auburn, with the one season that he had. I mean, he was Auburn in the season of 2009 for the 2010 BCS championship game. So yeah, give me Cam Newton.
Yeah, give me Cammy, boy.
All right, I'm glad.
I thought Kyle was going to be like Matt Leinart.
No.
Give me Lamar Jackson. Okay, well, that will get us into college football. We did not do well. Hold on, let me see if I can find the. There we go. I got to find the picks. Okay, so we did not do well. We went. I also spilled water on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We went 9 for 25 on our bowl game picks this past week. So our percentage went down by a total of 2.2 percentage points off of 76 games. That's not good. So we're going to try to do a lot better this week. Our games this week are Troy versus Duke, South versus Eastern Michigan, Georgia Tech versus UCF, James Madison versus Air Force, which could potentially be the best game of the week, and then Utah versus Northwestern. Let's go pick by pick, starting with Kyle.
It'd be a cold day in hell before I pick Troy Trojans to win a football game. Give me Duke, baby.
All right, Caleb.
Give me Duke, even without their head coach and even without their best quarterback they've had in at least 15 years. Yeah, I'm taking Duke. Tuck Froy.
Nick.
Troy, Duke.
Yeah, I'm not giving them any of my airtime, so Duke. Next game, South Alabama versus Eastern Michigan. Let's start with Caleb on this one.
South Alabama. Enough said.
I mean, why the hell would you even want to live in Michigan? So give me the Jags, baby.
Bitch, you're right next to it.
Yeah, but we're better in every kind of way.
Except the college football
and NFL, because they have
NFL
Detroit
football, yeah, and baseball.
None of that matters. Oh, hold on, slow down there, Kimasaki.
You hit a heartstring there. Nick.
Okay, I will take a second because it's very easy, and I am saying yes, the Jags are going to win. But I'm going to be a realist here. The Jags have never won a bowl game. I would love to see it happen, but the Jags love to rip my heart out. I'll be in attendance of the game. We will see, but South always does this bullshit. And they should win these games, and then they blank. So it's going to be a tough one. But I'm still go Jags. I think they'll win, but it's going to be a dogfight.
You don't know what you're talking about. South Alabama beat Oklahoma State 33-6. 33-6. Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma beat Texas. Texas beat Alabama.
You
South
are
Alabama's
right.
better than Alabama or Texas.
And Georgia.
And Georgia.
And
So
then you just put Central Michigan on top of them, and then bam, you have the playoffs.
So I just found out why we're playing Eastern Michigan. Because Eastern Michigan lost to Central Michigan 26-23.
My God.
That was the common denominator. Central Michigan was our common denominator.
My God.
So this game may end in a tie, but with my prediction, they don't have a win over a Power 5 school. They lost to Minnesota 25-6. They only beat UMass 19-17. They lost 21-0 against Jacksonville State, which I refuse to think that Jacksonville State would beat South Alabama this year.
Hell no, they would never.
The only team that they lost to Toledo 49-23, lost to Western Michigan 45-21, and then won a barn burner of a 2 overtime game by a field goal to Akron, the Zips. No, South Alabama, all the way. South and mouth, pause and draws. Next question, which is actually really this is gonna be an interesting game to pick. Georgia Tech versus Central Florida. Let's start with Nick on this one.
Central Florida. One of my favorite quarterbacks is probably playing his last game, John Rice Plumlee. This generation's Taysom Hill. Statistically, UCF has the best offense in the nation. They're averaging close to 400 rushing yards a game.
Jesus.
Yeah, and they're not a triple option. They're a spread. It's Gus Malzahn's offense. Their problem has been the defense and turnovers. Haynes King has played very well for Georgia Tech. It's going to be a close game, but I think UCF's offense is going to give them the edge. They have 2 1,000-yard rushers. Well, they might be up to 3 now, which is insane. So give me a UCF in a very high-scoring game.
Let's go with Kyle.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech wins this. I think they win it by keeping UCF's offense off the field, running out that clock, picking up your 4 yards a carry, and just grinding it out. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game because of that. I think these are going to be long 8-minute drives, and, it's Georgia Tech grinds it out and wins it at the end by a 1-score game.
What about you, Caleb?
I think Nick said it all. I'm taking Gus Malzahn and the Golden Knights as well.
So I'm going to actually take Georgia Tech. The only thing, the 2 negative things I will say about Haynes King is that he's thrown 15 interceptions this year. He's also taken 15 sacks for negative 93 yards. That being said, their top rusher has 931 yards rushing. Haynes King has 648 yards rushing. Their third leading rusher has 439 yards rushing, and then their fourth has 274. So, and it's funny because they're almost an air raid team because they're pretty balanced. Haynes King has 2,784 yards, or the team has 2,784 yards passing, and they have 2,365 yards rushing. So, I think I'm going to take Georgia Tech in this one by Joyless Murderball. That will get us into James Madison and Air Force. Let's start with the odd guy out here. Spoiler alert, Kyle.
Can we just skip him? Because this is about to be the most ignorant shit we've ever heard all season.
No, I mean, my reason going against James Madison, I just think the first bowl game is going to be too big. And I think Air Force is
Kyle,
they're a good running team. They're a good running team.
Look at me. Look at me. I
It's hard
want
not
you
to.
to tell me.
Big ass head you got.
I want you to tell me virtually look me in my eyes and tell me that Air Force has a better team than JMU.
I'm not saying that, but what it comes down to is any Saturday kind of philosophy.
So
I think-
you're picking
Oh,
Air
hey,
Force
who's
to upset
picking- hey-
JMU just cause.
Hey, whose pick is this right now? So shut the fuck up. All right. Like I was
I'm just saying it all so that
like
Nick
I
doesn't
was
have it, 'cause
saying.
he's
like I
beyond
was
speed right now.
Hey, motherfucker. Like I was saying, James Madison's going to come into this game. Lights too bright. Air Force wins it out. I think they're the better disciplined team.
Well, I'm going to pick the team that has not lost 4 straight in James Madison. Air Force has looked dog shit the last 4 weeks. James Madison has looked good all season long. So I don't think it's just another Saturday that, oh, well, anything can happen. I mean, if you look on trends and just outright play, James Madison is a much better team. I would say more physical. I mean, Air Force, they've got the triple option. That's cool. I mean, this isn't the 30s though. You know,
All right. Well, I'm going to take James Madison in a Jason Henderson legacy game.
I have a very bad news for you, Grayson.
Oh no! No!
We might want to clip that because he is part of the Old Dominion Monarchs.
Oh
I thought
god.
he didn't record a stat in the game earlier.
I don't think he played.
You're probably waiting for. God damn it! We talked about this earlier, Nick.
I know. I thought we were right. We were not.
Oh no.
James Madison. Moving on. Utah versus Northwestern. One of
Oh,
the only Power 5 schools that we have actually on this pick this week. They're the what, third? Yeah, they're 3 of the 10 teams are Power 5 or I guess 4 with Utah Northwestern. So let's start off with Caleb. Let's start off with Caleb first.
Utah. I gotta pick Utah. Northwestern. It's been so damn long since. I mean, it's probably been since the 50s when Northwestern was last a fixture. So yeah, I gotta pick Utah. Utah is gonna dominate them.
So I'm going to actually pick Northwestern, and the only reason why is because we continued to pick Utah when Cam Rising never came back. So I'm not going to pick Utah despite picking against Cam Rising. So I'll start picking them again when they when he plays, since he's coming back for his 7th year. Nick.
Utah by like 17. Northwestern is just gross.
It's a different. It might as well be a different league.
Yep. All right. Well, moving on to the NFL. We're gonna.
Sweet.
Kyle, who are you picking?
Yeah, Northwestern's gonna abuse Utah more than Northwestern abuse their own players in the showers. So yeah, give me Northwestern there.
What is the shower story? Where the did that come from?
Did you not hear about the hazing story that got their head coach fired?
When did that happen?
It's been happening for years. They fired the whole coach and everything. Pat Fitzgerald.
No, I never heard of that. I'll have to look that up.
You Canadians do some weird shit.
Swear.
All right. I don't even know where. Chicago.
Yeah, it's Chicago.
Yeah.
That's right up your alley.
I don't ever say that again.
All right, moving on to the NFL. We did better this week in NFL, I know for a fact. Only one person got the Tampa Bay game right. That was me. Just had to throw that in there. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16 out of 25. Can't really complain there. We're up to 51.7%, getting away from that 50 line. But we got what, 2 weeks? What week are we at? Oh, we've got like 4 weeks to
Yeah,
go.
we've got 4 weeks before wild cards.
All right. Well, we've still got time to screw it up. Let's see. Kyle is at 34 and 41. Caleb is right there teetering on the 500 mark at 38 and 37. Nick's at 46 and 29. BB is at 34 and 41, and I'm at 42 and 23. Games this week is going to be Baltimore versus San Francisco, the Cowboys and the Dolphins, the Lions and the Vikings, the Steelers and the Bengals, and then the Jacksonville at Tampa Bay. So let's start off with Kyle and go through all of your picks.
Yeah, San Francisco going to beat Baltimore. They're just a juggernaut right now. Give me Dallas. These two teams are teams whenever they play anybody over 500, they lose. So should be fun to see that one. Detroit. I mean, Minnesota doesn't have it figured out, so give me Detroit on that one. Give me Pitt, just cause. I don't know. I like
Mason
Pitt.
Randolph legacy game.
You're a thicko.
Yeah.
Give me Jacks over Tampa Bay, just out of spite right now. That's about it.
Good for you. Oh, God, at least they're not. At least they're not playing in the AFC. Well, if they were playing an NFC North team, we'd probably win. So specifically the green and yellow one. But anyway, Caleb, your pick's next.
Yeah, starting it off for Baltimore and San Francisco. I'm taking San Francisco, but I mean, that's enough said. I'll just do San Francisco. Keep this shit moving. So Dallas and Miami. I'm gonna take Dallas in that game. Miami has been exposed. They are definitely not the same caliber team as a Dallas or a San Francisco, or even a Buffalo for that matter. Going on to Detroit and Minnesota. I'm taking Detroit. Minnesota's just on a downward spiral. We talked about that last week. For Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, I'm taking Cincinnati. And Tampa Bay versus Jacksonville.
All right, goes to you, Nick.
San Francisco is going to beat Baltimore. Just look at the cities. And then Dallas is going to beat Miami. Miami is good when they play bad teams. Dallas is okay when they play good teams. And I think Dallas's defense really comes out on a rebound game since the Bills game. Detroit is again just I still have them as my sleeper team to go far in the playoffs. And Minnesota, Nick Mullins is not going to lead Minnesota to a win here against Detroit. I've got Cincinnati versus Pitt. I think Cincinnati's going to win. A big reason is because Jake Browning really kind of played his heart out and played very well. And Joe Mixon is picking it up. And so I think Cincinnati is having a much better outings, I guess you could say, than Pittsburgh's superstars. And Mason Randolph is getting the start this week, who's not started since last year. So I think they're just confused with the quarterback situation. And I just don't see much performance out of Pittsburgh. I think the best chance is their defense keep them in. And then I've got Tampa Bay beating Jacksonville. Jacksonville, they haven't looked great. They've been a very inconsistent team, and they'll win some 3-4 games in a row, and then they'll lose 2 or 3 in a row. And Jacksonville, I think, just slipping a little bit. And so just their cores aren't there. And so I think think Tampa Bay is kind of getting hot. And so I think Rashad White is a big reason. I mean, Baker's playing great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from him, but Rashad White is doing every single bit right. Like he's doing everything right as a receiver, as a running back. I mean, and then you've got obviously the Mike Evans and Chris Godwin tandem. So, and they're getting their tight ends involved a lot with K Dot and was it Kraft or Creef? Something, I
Yeah.
don't know. Another, their backup tight ends logging good catches as well. So, Tampa Bay.
All right, well, that gets to me. So I'm going to take San Francisco over Baltimore. The reason I'm taking San Francisco is because they Baltimore is gonna have like mistakes. They're gonna have like a turnover. They're gonna make mistakes, and they play well in games when their defense and their offense can also abuse the mistakes that the other team makes. That being said, I don't think San Francisco is going to make a lot of mistakes. I think they're a machine, and just unless they just screw up this week and like just are not clicking on all cylinders, I see San Francisco winning pretty handily. Dallas and Miami, guys, do you know what time of the year it is? It is time for Dallas to start disappointing their fans because the Bills blew them out. And they are about to get blown out by Miami because it is time for them to blow their lead because they technically right now, if they're not leading, they're now tied with well, I think it depends on this game, actually, the Eagles and Seahawks game. But they're right there on the cusp of being the NFC East top team. And it is that time of year where they're going to blow the lead. They're going to blow it to the Eagles, and they make a first-round exit. So the downward slope of the Dallas Cowboys starting now. So I'm picking Miami. Detroit versus Minnesota. Minnesota's about to be bad. They're about to be really bad over the next 4 weeks. It's not going to be pretty. Give me Detroit. Pitt and Cincinnati. Pitt's about to be even worse. They can't figure out their situation. I talked with Hayes about this the other day. Honestly, I think it's going to be beneficial to them if they part ways with Mike Tomlin. Not because Mike Tomlin is a bad coach, but he's got a shitty group of players that he's taking, and he's going to win games with them. He's a good coach. So they're not going to be able to rebuild. They're going to have the 15th pick every year because they're going to be middle of the pack, and they can't make any moves unless they make big free agency or trades. So Cincinnati's going to win. Like, I don't care if Jake Browning plays. I don't care if Kyle plays. I don't care if BB goes out there and throws the ball. Like, they're going to be Pitt. Jacksonville, Tampa Bay. I no longer have to die on the Jacksonville 13-4 shield anymore. And then being the first team in the AFC that I've made at the beginning of the year, because that's not going to happen. I'm dead and buried in that one. So give me my hometown Tampa Bay Buccaneers against Jacksonville in a 14-point win. I think Tampa Bay's defense is gonna. I don't think ETN's is gonna be able to do much. Calvin Ridley's not gonna do much because he's so inconsistent. Christian Kirk might be questionable for the game. Might be hurt if I'm not mistaken. I might be thinking Michael Pittman Jr. But
Christian Kirk, balls exploded. He's out for the season.
Yeah, he had testicle torsion.
Okay.
He's not playing.
I know. Okay, well, so there goes their most consistent receiver. Give me Tampa Bay by 2 touchdowns. Shut up, Kyle. It's your turn for your oop of the week. Oh, I'm sorry. Now it is time for everybody's favorite segment, except for now BB and Nick. Kyle's out of pocket pick of the week. You got an interesting one this week.
Yeah. I'm picking this because every time the Bills win a big game, they blow it the next week. I got the Chargers beating the Bills. I think the Chargers rebound after that embarrassing loss.
Is going Where's their offense going to come from? I want to hear. Your thoughts.
Oh, it's more that Josh Allen's going to throw 3 picks.
Is Easton
Against-
Stick going to be
against-
able to score even a touchdown, Kyle?
I'm sticking by my word. Chargers. beat the
Kyle, one
Bills.
team has to score more points than the other. If the other doesn't score points, they can't win.
Yeah, Chargers going to win. Putting it down.
There's that just cuz philosophy.
Yeah, man. that's how
I'm
Vegas
telling you,
rolls.
dude, it's the nuh-uh defense.
Kyle
Yeah.
knows ball.
Kyle,
Kyle's ball.
Kyle was right? Question mark.
Hey, 2-0 in NFL right now.
Hashtag Kyle called it.
Yet you have this tied for worst record.
No, those don't count.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
do you want to talk about the college picks too?
Hey, we're in a dynasty league, so I'm looking forward to next year with my picks. I'll recruit better, and there you go.
You just compared the alphabet to numbers. What? We're talking about our picks.
Hold on, I ain't doing too bad in college. I'm 44-32. That's some bullshit.
You still have the worst record.
Yeah, that's the worst.
All right, I'm still above 50. At least I would have put Florida State in the playoffs. That's all I got to say.
Kyle, we literally practically had an entire episode where all of us said that.
Well, there you go. I do know ball.
We didn't say
four
it
other
because
guys-
you
I
said
got-
it. We said
I
it
got
because
4
we
other
all
guys
thought it.
agreeing with me. So there you go. In the end, Chargers beat the Bills. Write it down. $20
It
on the
is.
game.
It's written down.
There you go.
We have it on the script.
All right, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If the Chargers beat the Bills, we do a podcast next week where we're all muted and it's just Kyle the entire time, and Kyle gets to assume what we're saying.
I don't want to do that to our couple viewers.
Well, it's okay, Nick, because if the Chargers lose, Kyle has to be muted for the entire podcast.
No, I like your idea, Caleb, because if we do that, you're not factoring in the wild card off the top rope of BB not being on right now. So it would just be BB and Kyle going back and forth for an hour and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, granted, we would have to get yeah, we would have to get subtitles for the episode, but it was
I'll get my carpal
by the
tunnel
way-
braces
by the
and
way,
I'll get ready to do the closed captioning.
By the way, to our viewers, Kyle and BB's baseball podcast coming soon.
oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That might actually be the most entertaining thing we have. Okay. Well, that's going to end episode 17 of the JEB Board podcast. Everybody go listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I like how I say this at the end when you've already listened to it and you already found it. But anyways, go listen to our other stuff on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Go check out the Instagram and the Twitter. And until next time, casuals, don't get hard counted.